Hello, welcome back. So what I want to talk about quickly as we continue to just set some foundation for you is the problem solution concrete abstract quadrants. Now this is pretty important and I often use it when I go in to try and diagnose a problem at a client site. And really what you have is you have a very, refer back to the knowledge funnel that I consistently come back to actually and I've introduced in a previous module, is that you have this mystery space, which is really where the intuitive aspects of the human mind operate as you try and solve or address wicked problems. And then what you do is you move through a cycle of squashing those through into heuristics, recipes and rules of thumb, and down into things that you can repeat and create reliability from. Well, the problem is a lot of business tends to sit down in that bottom space. So it tends to sit down here into what is actually referred to as the concrete space. And we tend to have a problem that we become aware of, and we have a knee-jerk reaction, and there's a solution. And we see this often in large-scale problems as well as small-scale problems. So let's work through two examples that I have in mind. Right. So what we have is crime is too high. Classic fourth-order problem. Now, a natural reaction for something like crime is too high is let's put more police on the street. So let's go and pop some more police on the street. Now we know, and coming from a country with one of the largest police forces in the world, but also one of the highest crime rates in the world, that doesn't necessarily solve the problem. We know things like making freeways and highways bigger doesn't actually reduce traffic, it actually increases traffic. So there's things that are counterintuitive, and yet this is a consistent problem. We have this sort of knee-jerk reaction. Now the point of design is to actually move you away from this knee-jerk reaction, more up into the abstract space, and to force you to travel a path which heads this way around instead. And really through a process of research, right, I can actually extract some insights and get a true understanding of the nature of the problem. And based upon that, I can ideate and I can develop a series of concepts which I can prototype down here. All right. You can see the attached, there will be something you can download. I know my handwriting is a sight to behold. But really this is the journey that you have to go on. You have to move away from just at the concrete space pulling up. And that's really, some of them have referred to as the human-centered design, but the whole principle of design thinking, all right, is, yes, it's human-centered in nature, but it's problem-solving in nature, and that is to try and pull away from this concrete space more into this top-level space. So let's take this crime example. So if we take the crime example, crime is too high. This particular one was done from a study in the UK, where after doing a whole bunch of research, they identified that 5% of violent crime, right, occurs from people being glassed with beer bottles. So we know that fighting crime, being fourth order, is large. Where do you start? You might as well boil the ocean. Right? So there's a big problem there. So through this process and some of the techniques that you're going to learn is, well, we identified that 5% of those activities were from the glassing exercise. So really it goes through a series of ideation exercises on this side as we move over into the solution space. And the team in the UK came up with a brilliant idea, which really was this beer glass. It was a mug that was shatterproof. And effectively, I'm going to call it the shatterproof mug. And went through a process of validating this with the market, validating it with owners of pubs and stores, and testing its ability to withstand dishwashers and all the rigors of saloon life. And effectively produced this shatterproof glass, which when smashed on somebody's head broke into 1,000 pieces, reduced the severe injuries which resulted from sharp glass slicing up people's faces, and had an impact on the reduction of crime in that specific area. So that's a classic example of a fourth order problem that actually sits across this particular matrix. Now just quickly, let's look at a third order one, which sits maybe within the operating model of an organization. And this particular client, basically their month in procedure was taking 35 days. All right, so 35 days to get the reports back into decision makers within the organization. And a natural response for those types of things, hey, let's do business intelligence projects. Let's put in data warehousing. Let's put in data marts and all of that stuff which comes with it. And this was attempted at this client site, and millions of dollars later, they were still no closer to an effective solution. So one of the things that we did was we actually took them up into the abstract space, and we identified that, hold on, this problem is actually, it's not a technology problem. It's actually a human-related problem. And what we identified up top here, right, after doing quite a bit of research and extracting some insights, we identified that the executives were actually fixing the numbers. And that's no new occurrence, actually, as they try and massage the numbers to look good so that they get their bonuses. Right, but that was actually taking time. So if we didn't put the lens of accuracy on in this particular scenario, we just put the lens of timeliness on. And we deduced that they were actually taking a whole heap of time in order to get this report through. So we ideated a few cycles, and all we actually did was built a very simple access database, all right, and we gamified it. We produced a leaderboard which effectively showed which executives submitted their results, when they received the previous executive's results in the workflow, and then how long it took them to submit it. And effectively just popped that onto a leaderboard, all right, which sat in the executives, in the board meetings each month. Do you know we brought that month in procedure down to 5 days? We went from 35 days to 5 days. So there was no heavily expensive technology, all of those types of things. This wasn't required, all right? A simple solution is often required. And I'll talk around this later about the rudder under the water, that the small little things, you can actually get a lever that is quite powerful within your organization. Now the tragedy of this scenario is culturally, as soon as we walked off site, that little database ran for another 3 months and they switched it off. And you know what? A year after that, they called us back in to come and fix their month-end reporting procedure. So you can see why you can come up with these great solutions, but culturally, if those things aren't enforced or mindsets haven't changed, sometimes it doesn't quite work as well as you'd like it to. So the numbers were proof of the outcome, but human behavior wanted a different result. So anyway, that's what we'll actually use. A good tool for you to use, by the way, every time you engage with a problem, to try and figure out, well, what are you doing, where are you moving, can we take you further up into the quadrant at the top. See you soon.